Can this be accomplished? I know you're all
As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol, as a symbol, I can be incorruptible.
He gave us a signal.
Where are you?
Something elemental, something terrifying.
Hi, happy Saturday morning. Welcome to episode 2 of Cavecast, where we take an academic approach to the world of Batman. So let's get right into it. Superhero, vigilante, dark protector. Is he the hero Gotham deserves, or a mental patient getting a little too physical with his therapy? I'm Sammy Threepeat, and today we're going to talk about Bruce Wayne, Batman, a study in duality. And with me today is my panel. First panel of the show, we have my buddy Zach. How are you?
Doing all good. Just doing a nice little sketch for the today's show, and I also know deep, extensive knowledge about Batman. Being a huge comic book reader, so I can't wait to get into.
I mean,
this
we've
topic.
talked on the phone for hours.
Yeah. Now I'm not as good when it comes to issue numbers. When it comes to Batman, I can do that for like Marvel comics. But I do know, preferably one of my favorite versions of Batman has to be the Silver Age.
We can get into that for sure. The definite ages of Batman. Drunken Emerald Arrow. This is your first time on my show, and I'm very happy to have you. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Yep. For me, I mean, what Zach was saying with what he has, mine is a lot of movie knowledge and his Rogues Gallery. So,
yes. Best Rogues Gallery in the game. Some might argue Spider-Man. I don't blame you if you do, but I've always been drawn to Batman for his villains.
Yep.
And last but certainly not least, my buddy, Real Life Fake Wizard.
What's
How
good,
are ya?
guys? I'm happy to be here. My extensive Batman knowledge stems exclusively from consuming Instagram shorts and TikToks. So I'm really happy to be here to bring my knowledge to this panel.
Oh
Hey,
my God! Here we
that-
go.
That's fine. We always need someone to go down the rabbit hole with us, and that's something that I'm always going to try to do, is have people who are somewhat familiar, because just like Zach said, it can get pretty tedious. There's nothing like getting into like a deep comic book discussion. They're like, well, actually in issue 86, especially in Batman, just like Spider-Man, where you don't just have the Amazing Spider-Man, you have the Spectacular Spider-Man, you have the Web of Spider-Man. Same thing with Batman. You have DC Comics, you have Batman, you have Batman Adventures, what is it, Dark Knight Adventures, so many. What was the big one in the 90s where they had Kelly Jones doing the art, where he had those like crazy long ears?
Oh, that was your typical
Shadow of the Bat.
Yeah.
Shadow of the Bat.
Well,
which,
he also
by the
was
way,
doing that on the covers of Detective and some of the regular Batman covers, because Nightfall was one of the biggest events for that character arc.
all right, let's say hi to the chat. It's only 11 people right now, but it tends to grow. I'm starting to think I might have to start the show a little bit later. One, because we get no West Coast watchers, and
hey, you want to know what the West Coast watchers can be here, and they need to be here. I'm here.
yeah, no kidding.
It's funny how he says, he's like, I get all my information on TikTok.
Yeah,
And
what
whatnot,
time?
'cause I can't tell you how many times I got into arguments as like a nerd where it's like I've read directly from the source material through the years, and then the movies start coming out. So I'd be, I'll go to watch the movies, but then I'll be having these arguments about people who's just got the overview arc on the Wikipedia page.
Yep.
Oh my
And I'm
God.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, because I know what I'm talking about. Have you ever read from the source material? Because even Wikipedia can get a lot of that wrong.
Well, also
And
too,
it
you
often
get those
does.
you get those people who they bought that one issue
Mhm.
so they could have that got you moment where it was like, no, actually in this universe, Batman passed the torch to Lucius Fox's son, so Batman is black, and you're like, no, Batman is Bruce Wayne.
Yep.
Everybody else he's handed the mantle to, even when Dick Grayson picked up the mantle, or John Paul Valley. That's John Paul Valley Batman. That's Dick Grayson Batman. When you say Batman without any moniker before it, it's Bruce Wayne. There's nobody else. Okay,
Mhm.
oh, even Terry McGinnis is Batman Beyond.
Well,
Let's
you
Bat-
bring up a very good point, because it's the same thing when it comes to Miles Morales. When you say Spider-Man, that's Peter Parker. Miles
yes,
Morales is
absolutely.
Miles Morales, so he's Miles Morales Spider-Man over somewhere else, but Spider-Man is Peter Parker.
Well, it's the
Same thing.
same thing with or Ben Riley Spider-Man, or
Yep.
when they
We
go
don't
with
talk about
Venom,
that.
Flash Thompson Venom, but
Yep.
Hook, first one
Again.
here, thanks for coming.
Or now
Darnell.
Paul's Venom now.
Oh yeah. Paul, really?
Yeah, he's the new Venom.
The Mary Jane's boyfriend?
Is the new Venom? That's correct. Yes.
Oh. I just
Yeah.
bought the 90s Venom omnibus and the King in Black as well, and those are like some of the biggest omnibus I own. But it's so sad because it was so much fun. But this is not a Marvel Comics discussion. Let's keep going in the chat here. Joker voice, great to see you. The Crown Prince of Crime himself. I was talking with him the other day, and he said he likes to get arrested on Friday nights because in Arkham, Saturday night is taco night, and I was thinking, wouldn't Tuesday be taco night? And he goes, Sammy, it's a madhouse. And that made a lot of sense. So Eraserhead, always good to see you, buddy.
I gotta play
Hayden,
with Eraserhead on Apex Legends again. It's been a hot minute.
Hayden Wayne, always good to see you, my friend. My wife, Mrs. Three-Pete. Ryu. All right, and that's let's just get into it right now. Let me consult my my breakdown of what I want to get into. So we can start with probably best place to start is when we're talking about Bruce Wayne. Oh, I got to put up my Bat banner. Please hit the Bat like button, Bat subscribe, and Bat share the show. Let's go. So I talked about Gotham. So there's plenty of iterations of Batman, but what is your guys' favorite iteration of the character? Could be era. I know you said you like Silver Age, Zach. I prefer golden, or not golden age, Bronze Age. When they started getting away from the silliness. I love the silliness. But it was the leaps that they took to try and bring Batman back to his roots that really did it for me. So
for me, it's more. I'd have to go more silver.
Okay.
The reason,
and
if I may, very quickly, reason
you
why I go
may.
for silver is because Detective Comics at that time really did focus on a lot of the detective stories with the character, and a lot of the villains that he was going. Yeah, he had your typical villains, but a lot of the stories he had were really kind of, they were heart wrenching, and yet suspenseful, murder mysteries. And he was just trying to figure out like your typical mysteries and detective stories on average criminals who think they can get a one up and try to best the Batman. And that's always been one of my favorites.
Well, that was out of necessity. So, a lot of that had to do with the comic books code of authority, which, like I said, this is to explain, to get normies on board. There's a stamp that you would see, getting out of the golden age of comics into the start of the silver age, that heavily limited, what writers and creators could put in their comics. And that's why the Joker started out killing people from the get, and having that rigorous smile on their face to, I'm robbing a bank because but it's going to be like clown themed, and or I took over this bowling alley, and you get these insane storylines like the laughing fish, things like that. That's when characters, even though I'm not sure if the Riddler is, I think the Riddler is Silver Age, but
He is.
that's when you get characters like that, because people couldn't get killed. That's so I always said the golden age is when it was okay for supervillains to go, I'm a supervillain, and you've never seen a supervillain like me before, because no one knew what supervillains were. The silver age is when someone just like, the Penguin is a great example, where they're like, there's this gold statue of a bird at a museum, and then he floats down and goes and that's kind of like the silver age. And then we get to the bronze era, where like I said, this is probably let's see if we can just get them all there. So this is the issue cover, the issue that everybody says took us out of the silver age into the bronze age, and that's called the Joker's what is it, 5-point revenge, or the Joker's 5-point revenge. That's really also had Neil Adams, who's one of the greatest comic book artists of all time, in my opinion. But so we have a brief thing. So we talked a little bit about Bruce Wayne last week, but we didn't really dive into the character. And so in the very beginning, a lot of people don't know this, is when Batman started out first solving crimes and everything. This is the first panel that I think in Detective Comics 27, which is the debut of Batman, 1939. And we just see Bruce Wayne kind of looking bored, smoking a pipe, talking with Commissioner Gordon. And he was referred to as bored socialite Bruce Wayne. He did not have the motivations that we know him to have, in the comics and in the movies. He did it because he was rich and bored. There was like this adventurer aspect of it, and it was very much that pulpy influence, like the Shadow, the Phantom, guys like that, where they just kind of did it just to do it. And there was this romantic aspect of Zorro would be another one, even though Zorro was more of a freedom fighter. Batman just did it because he was rich and bored, and he had a lot of time on his hands, and he happened to live in the gritty city of New York, because in the early iterations, Gotham City was not a thing. I mean, now you'll get some of these contrarians going like, well, it happened pretty early on. It happens around the Detective Comics run. People need to understand that there was a Detective Comics run before Batman. So when they say like the Joker showed up issue 1 of Batman, there were plenty of issues before Batman issue 1. That was just when Batman got his own comic book line. It's the same thing with Spider-Man and like Amazing Fantasy, and Thor with Journey into Mystery. even Superman was Action Comics. They didn't have their own title yet, and that's just kind of how it was. You would have these kind of they were almost proving grounds where these stories would come out as installments, but they're also like what word am I thinking of here? Like episodes of the Twilight Zone where they were standalone story.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. The which to start off with all of the comics is the whole point. It was great. Essentially, it was the comic creators essentially doing pilots. What is going to work?
Yes.
What's going to sell? And then they start tailing around there, and then eventually, you're going to get your standalone comics and them having their own names. So that's where later down the road you get Batman 1, you get Superman 1. It's after the proving ground, the actual trial run of these characters, and see how they're taking off and how the response is.
Oh, just want to say hi to Scooby Pup, my favorite pup. And yes, damn, I really can't think of the word, and it's driving me insane. But
Workshopping?
No, I'm just saying where it was, where it's a different story every single time. Like I said, like the Twilight Zone, or doesn't matter. We don't need to bring
episodic.
Kind of.
Yeah, there's another term for that, and I'm drawing a blank.
I'm blanking too.
There is a specific term.
Yes, but there's no reason to bring the show to a screeching halt because we need a thesaurus. I'm
not into dinosaurs.
Roar.
And I said, my buddy Nagrinol here. Have a great baby, Nagrinol. And so we can talk about, well, after a couple issues, they decided to give Batman motivation, and probably his greatest motivation, other than he loves Gotham City and he is kind of the prince of that city and would like to see it redeemed, is Batman. Bruce Wayne lost his parents in a tragic accident, or not accident, in a brutal act of crime. And yeah, very sad. Yeah, in case you didn't know, Batman has dead parents, and they were killed right in front of him. Usually the standard age where Bruce Wayne's parents is killed in front of him is 8. I've heard as early as 5 in different iterations, and sometimes in the movies he looks to be as old as 14. But it should be around 8 time-wise for his gallivanting around the world and training, so to speak. But originally he didn't really do that. They just kind of hit on him just being in the cave and working out. And what they wanted you to understand was Batman was Bruce Wayne is peak physical condition. He's probably the smartest guy around. He is the epitome of, he's the Ubermensch. Like he's as good as a man possibly gets. And also he's filthy stinking rich. So Dark of Iron, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, so when you think of the serialized, thank you Joker voice. I can now think clearly. So yes, so he is the epitome of what a man can be, and he's also the world's greatest detective, and they use that that moniker quite a lot to describe Bruce Wayne. And so in the we can start out with the Golden Age. We already got to the Golden Age. The Silver Age gets a little bit more lighthearted, and that's because of writer censorship, and they thought that comic books were there was a book, I believe it was called Seduction of the Innocent. So that's when you see Batman being not carrying a gun and snapping people's neck and kicking them off buildings, but you start to see Batman hanging out, smiling a little bit more. There's that famous Bob Kane smile, and that's definitely how Bob Kane drew him, even though he didn't draw much of his own work at this point. notorious for having you know ghost artists and things
yeah.
like that. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Bill Finger did a lot of the heavy lifting for most of this, but the way that that comic books got attributed to their authors, Bob Kane fought tooth and nail, especially if you read letters. There's always a letters portion at the end of a lot of comics, especially in the in earlier comics. I don't even know if they have that anymore. Do they still have like a letters board in modern comics where
They do. Yeah,
okay,
they do.
well he would fight tooth and nail that he was the sole creator of Batman. He did nothing well, and unfortunately that wasn't the case, and Bill Finger did not get the credit that he deserved until long after his death. I think the first time that Bill Finger actually got recognition on screen was Batman v Superman, which was not that long ago, considering how many iterations of Batman have been on the screen. So
same thing in
that is
comics and comic books. It was around 2011, 2012 is when you started seeing that.
yes. So the Silver Age is when you started seeing things like Batmite, or characters like the Riddler, the Penguin. Catwoman is actually very early on.
Well, I mean, it's really the big birth of the Rogues Gallery really starting to become apparent, especially with the introduction of those characters.
Yes, I mean, the Joker stuck around. Actually, another famous one would probably be Hugo Strange. He's made appearances, but the very first appearance of a supervillain, actually, his first supervillain was Dr. Death, and he showed up in like 3 issues in the Detective comic run, and then you didn't see him again until the 70s. Apparently, no one liked him enough to bring him back, but he was the first repeat villain. But they realized something that comic book movies have yet to realize is it's not a great idea to keep killing off your supervillains. So they initially killed the Joker in his first bout, and then they're like, oh, we have to bring him back. He's super popular. And of course, he's been a mainstay in comics forever, and is regarded as one of the greatest comic book villains of all time. So we're trucking right along here. So we talked about key iterations. Anybody want to mention any famous comic book runs, key comic book runs that we obviously Frank Miller's Batman Year One is probably one that I would suggest to anyone. The Long Halloween.
Yeah, Long Halloween, Dark Victory.
Yep.
As a great sequel to it, absolutely.
There's certain things that I love more about Dark Victory than Long Halloween, for sure.
There's honestly, I think the best break-in for anybody who hasn't read anything Batman, it would have to be it's The Killing Joke.
Yeah,
Killing Joke is great.
Yep. That definitely is a good one for anyone that's not read any of them. That's a very good introductory.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough one because it captures the relationship really well between 2 characters, the hatred and how they dance around each other for such a long time. But at the same time, too, I'm also like, there's really good Batman stories that I've read that are just in between single issues. Really hard for me to just simply go out there and say, hey, you should pick up this one thing, because there's no reprints on it. You have to buy the original.
Yeah.
You'll find another great one as far as who the character is. It's a Justice League story, but it's called Tower of Babel. That's definitely one of my favorite stories. A lot of these ones, like Court of Owls, Death of the Family, things like that. I wouldn't call those great Batman stories. There's other things going on. Like Court of Owls is a great all-around Gotham-centric story. Now, granted, you don't have Gotham without Batman. But you know, there. So Batman Year One, I was just discussing this with my friend Josh the other day. That's a better tale, even though it discusses Batman's origins and its first like real deep dive into the exploration of that character and his motivations as a modern telling of that story, which I think Frank Miller knocked it out of the park there. It's very much a story about the corruption of Gotham, and it's more of a Jim Gordon story than anything else. Batman is kind of static in that, like, he has his goal, he's doing what he's doing, but he's kind of like a Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver. If he wasn't a taxi driver and a billionaire who came back to clean up the city, but like the idea is the same. Hush is a great one. Hush would be a great one because it gets into it really kind of explores the identity of Bruce Wayne into Batman. And that's what we're going to talk about next, is the duality of the character itself. So you can argue that, Bruce Wayne, wealthy American playboy, philanthropist, industrialist, just all around good dude, but he's supposed to look like this very nonchalant playboy. And then you have Batman, who also the wonderful things that Bruce Wayne tries to do for the city in the public eye, and the respect that his family has garnered from Gotham City. He's sometimes called as the Prince of Gotham, and then he does that by day, but at night he's patrolling rooftops and trying to make sure that the tragedy that happened to him never happens again to anyone else, which is it's kind of a futile venture, because you can get into the extension of like the Bat family, but it's really supposed to be one man taking on the urban nightmare and what that causes. And there's no way that you're going to prevent everyone from committing crime. I don't care how many lights you put in the sky. So you could also argue that Bruce Wayne is kind of an insane person, and so
definitely fighting his own demons and we see it kind of portrayed a little bit more movies wise than the comics, but really trying to fight those demons by pushing it off into the Bat moniker that he then wears. And it almost starts to become that Bruce Wayne is more the disguise and he is Batman. That's where it starts to shift.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No,
I was going to say, I have to disagree with that because in the movies, they lack a lot. I mean, yeah, you can see a good relationship, how he struggles with being Bruce Wayne and being Batman and one or the other. Like, who is he really as an identity? But in the comics, it really does portray that. I mean, you could read stories that Andy Kubert has done where his curse of being the Batman is eternal, because when he's on the verge of death, there's one issue that Andy Kubert done where it's supposed to be a beautiful send off to show that an evergreen character like Batman, as troubled as he is as an individual, will always be cursed with the responsibility of making sure, like what Sammy was talking about, making sure that a kid will never have to lose his parents again. And there's so many moments where he is in conflict with himself, where he doesn't even want to be Bruce Wayne. He doesn't want to also put on the mantle. And he's so heavily conflicted. In the movies, like I'd say Dark Knight touches a good portion of it.
Dark Knight. I think Dark Knight gets it right to a certain aspect. I think Batman versus Superman gets it right to a certain aspect, where where he's consulting with Alfred and he's like, well, perhaps Bruce Wayne should go to this party. It's not as if it's like a character like the Creeper, where it's like a change in personality. He's one in the same. It's it's just he utilizes his alias as a tool. they're just starkly different from one another. But it's not like he has a personality disorder. He doesn't, he doesn't struggle.
He's aware of
like
what he's doing.
yes, he you know what I mean. He's not. There's certain comic book characters that do struggle with that, and or like the loss of identity, and there are characters that reflect that, but it's the same thing. Whereas Superman, Clark Kent, or Superman was like, well, technically he's Kal-El of Krypton, but he's all of those things. Those are all aspects of that character. You can't really have one without the other. Bruce Wayne, I think there's nothing more that he would like to do than not be Batman. But until the city kind of shapes up, or he has reached this unobtainable goal, he's always going to be Batman because of what happened to him. And
well, exactly. I mean, it Dark Knight does touch on that, really, because the whole him essentially looking, hey, I have now, looks like I have someone that I can turn over the responsibility to, so I don't have to do this anymore.
Yes,
now, granted, part of that motivation,
he did it without jumping off rooftops. He locked up half of Gotham City's criminals. That was a great point. Another great point, and we'll get into this a little bit later, because I think one of the most misunderstood iterations of Batman is Tim Burton's Batman. And by the way, hi Blair, good to see you, my friend. But
that is the one that changed it all, though.
It is.
Yep.
Changed the world for Batman.
It did.
It changed the world for superheroes to even be appropriated
right.
into movies. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But there's that part where he's talking to Vicky Vale in the Batcave, where he's saying something like, "I love you. I want us to be together, but like right now, I got to go to work." And and then he suits up, and that's the there's that aspect too, where that's why Catwoman's such an alluring character, and almost a fetish, because like she's the only one who can really understand. Absolutely, Boosh, that's what we're here for. Yes, and good call. The cult. See, Nightfall is great, but the beginning of Nightfall is better than I like all the John Paul Valley stuff. It's very, the design of John Paul Valley's Batman is, as a 90s kid, I thought it was cool. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it's a warped reflection of what John Paul Valley thought Batman should be, and obviously that wasn't the case, and everybody booed it because they thought Dick Grayson should have picked up the mantle, and he should have. And that was the mistake in Bruce Wayne's judgment, but that just kind of shows you how badly Bane had broken him. And wonderful. But another thing that people misunderstand about Tim Burton's Batman is there is that adventurer aspect. He's more of the golden age Batman, where he is kicking people off rooftops. I'm going to make a video. So I was on a panel talking about Batman 89, where he's got Jack Napier over that in the chemical factory, and he's holding him by one hand. If you break that down slowly, Bruce drops him in there. He doesn't let him slip. He realizes
it was intentional. You see
so
it in his
everyone's
look.
like,
You
no,
see it in the look. You see it in the look on his face.
So I'm going to break it down slowly. You see him. He recognizes Jack Napier, who in that iteration of Batman killed Bruce Wayne's parents, recognizes him, and then pulls his hand back in disgust. That and realistically, that is something that it should always be prevalent in Batman. Is Batman wanted sweet bloody revenge, but he turns his back on revenge because he realizes he would be perpetuating the type of behavior that killed his parents in the first place. But that's not something that was always there. That's something that evolved that's something that happened over time, which is great, which is why we're still talking about this character, from 1939 all the way to today, is because the idea of that still rings true. Is you could choose to make the easy decision, which usually feels good at the moment, or you could do what is right, and you could do good, to the best of your abilities, be the best person possible. Now, I'm not advocating to dress up like an animal and beat the shit out of criminals, but in this, that's just what he does, and that's the fantasy aspect of it. So, but there's something primal about that, where it just rings true, and I think it resonates with a bunch of people, and obviously it does.
Well, bringing up that is that the Burton films really got rid of, I think, with the character himself, got rid of the no kill policy. He definitely kills. And I think
no,
when
that's
they
what I'm
went,
saying. It's very
right,
golden age.
right, but once they get, let's say, to the Dark Knight series movies, Dark Knight Rises, and Batman Begins, they go and bring much more of the no kill back into the character itself.
Well,
I think the Joel Schumacher ones definitely were really, especially the unfortunate movie that is Batman and Robin. We're really trying to bring back more of the camp of the 60s TV show.
Well, that was a mandate from Warner Brothers. Unfortunately, one of the biggest detriments to Batman Returns is they had to deal with McDonald's to sell, to give out toys and Happy Meals. So as a bunch of kids in the 90s will understand, is there were action figure lines and Saturday morning cartoons for IPs that we should have never been allowed to. It was like, like, can I get the Rambo toy? Sure. Can I watch the Saturday morning cartoon? Sure. Can I watch the movie? No, you can't watch the movie. RoboCop. Can I watch the Saturday morning cartoon? Sure. Can I get the toy? Sure. Can I watch the movie? No, you definitely can't watch that movie. Terminator. I think Swamp Thing had a Saturday morning cartoon. Which is, I guess, a little bit more Toxic Avenger, a trauma movie, had a Saturday morning cartoon in the toy line. Kids should never see that movie. Or they do, and then they grow up to be in their mid 30s and make shows about Batman. Who knows? You can argue nature versus nurture all day.
Yeah, well, all it was creating future. It was creating future art.
Yes,
and that's what it is. We'll call it that.
So now we have gotten deep into.
Am I the only person that doesn't hate Batman and Robin?
I think I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
I don't hate it, but I definitely, it is lowest on my movie scale. I see what they were trying to do. I personally did not like the actor that they brought in to play Batman, mainly because I don't like that actor.
George Clooney. Yeah.
Clooney?
He smiled too much. But it worked for what they were trying to do. The problem is it would have worked if it was a standalone or a reboot.
Right.
What they were trying to do is bring it back to like the roots of like, the Silver Age and the 1960s television show, which originally that's what they wanted to go with before Tim Burton got on board. So originally when they wanted to make a Batman movie, they wanted they were in talks. I mean, there was different scripts. So Jack Nicholson was always they wanted the Joker as the Joker, but they wanted Eddie Murphy to play Robin, and they wanted Bill Murray to play Batman, and it was going to be campy like the show. And then of course, Tim Burton got on board, and that wasn't going to happen. There was talks to William Dafoe, who wasn't a big enough star at the time, and then Robin Williams, who was very much on board, but that was just a ploy to coax Jack Nicholson into taking the role, and that's why we got. Yes and no. You can say that. Thank you. I always make that mistake. It is Willem Dafoe. And Dark Hour, great to see you, buddy. Did I say hi to Jake? Jake, always good to see you, sir. But yeah, so what do you think Bruce Wayne would be like if his parents weren't killed in front of him?
I don't think Batman would even exist then. I definitely
No.
think the death of his, in this case, if we're looking at it with using the motivation becoming Batman being the death of his parents, no death of parents, no Batman.
Yeah, I don't think the golden age, I'm just rich and bored, would have rang true. I think he still would have been more of a philanthropist, helping out the city, doing what he does on the Bruce Wayne side of the character. Maybe a little bit more innovative in like Wayne Tech, because he is a terrific scientific mind. But or you could argue that he would become someone a little bit more like Blue Beetle, like a Ted Kord, where there is that kind of aspect, but I don't think any like tragedy befell Ted Kord to do it. It really is the drive that and the suffering that Bruce Wayne had to endure that kind of like shapes the character and has that unbreakable will, where I mean, even he's got the willpower to deny lantern rings, and which is something that's very, very hard to do in the comics, which I don't see us getting into that for a very long time into this, if we're going step by step. Oh yeah, no, it's super metal. But that's something that I don't see us doing for quite some time on this show.
I mean, it essentially, you're just looking at it's just being another vigilante that's just out there. I mean, Green Arrow. I mean,
yeah,
right. I mean, it doesn't mean that Batman maybe didn't exist, but it would definitely be, if a Batman were to exist without the traumatic experience of the death of his parents, then it would be a completely different Batman. If it even got to the point of becoming a Batman character being born, but it would have to, I definitely be by some other means, clearly.
Yeah, well, it definitely wouldn't be the symbol that we have.
When we talk about that though, and this, if we were talking on this subject about like, oh, what if or whatever, if we rewind the clock back, I'd say about like 13, 14 years ago, or maybe I'd say about I'd say close to 20, it would be a very interesting conversation. What makes it very, very difficult is because now we have so many iterations, so many what ifs and different Elseworlds versions of these characters. It really does make it hard as a comic fan to speculate in a serious topic, because like a Dark Knight Metal, is just kind of the Spider-Verse's version for DC, and
yeah, pretty much.
we have every iteration of what would Batman could have been in any version.
Well, Thomas Wayne.
Yeah, like it's an interesting topic for sure, but it gets a lot difficult. Yeah.
All right. Well, we can't truly talk about Batman without talking about some of his notable allies. So let's probably the most important. Oh, we already agreed that this picture doesn't work, so you can only see the top of his head. But obviously, probably the most important ally of Batman would be Alfred Pennyworth, his loyal butler, parental figure after the death of the Waynes, and most people like to say is Bruce's moral compass. He is by far probably one of the most enduring characters. He's usually in every iteration and of Batman. It's very rare do you see unless you're going very early on in the comics, do you see him without Alfred, and rightfully so. He's very much evolved. He's not a butler character anymore, but more of like a guardian, parental, father figure to Bruce. But now they
And-
even kind of had it where I like where it evolved, where he was kind of more head of the security for the Wayne family. That tends to make more sense. Not a lot of people buttling these days. Friend of the channel, butlers. But
I mean, like him and Aunt May, they both should die at a certain point. I mean, like
yeah,
it's a growth. It's a growth spurt for these characters to move forward. They are super important, but there does get to a point where it's like, all right, dude, you've been like fucking 90 years old, 70 years old for like 50 years. There is a point where like you got to move on. If the character itself is growing, is married, and all these other different things is happening, there's got to be a point where like these characters are going to die through an unfortunate death, or they're going to go ahead and they're going to die of old age.
yes, and he very much kind of plays like the man in the chair, but there are people better suited for it, like Barbara Gordon, Oracle, or I mean, she's Batgirl again now, but she's much more suited for the guy in the chair purposes. There's few people better with computers than Oracle, Barbara Gordon. But you can't really explain who Batman is without having some
And that's
explanation.
I mean, it's kind of hard though, for especially in comics, like the passage of time, because you have time in the story, but then you have real time for us, and so like the balance between that is really hard. So if if Batman is moving along and progressing in his own life, then yeah, it makes sense for Alfred to age with him. So it's hard to get around that. But like, and Magneto is from World War II. The further we
Yes.
get away from World War II, the more difficult it is for him to be around. They have
But
to
they're-
find new ways to youngify him, right? So it's the same thing. I think it's the same thing. It's a really hard thing, and they have to keep explaining ways around that. Like, oh, there's this serum or something has happened, and now he's able to live a little younger and longer.
Well, and it goes down to just like the brass tacks here. So, and basically the point of this entire show is, yes, you can have stories moving forward where Alfred doesn't exist, but even in Elseworlds or, future storylines, there's always a moment where Bruce is going to be sitting at Alfred's headstone asking for advice or imagining what Alfred would say, because Alfred is the guy who raised him after his parents died. Alfred is the guy who helps him in hours of moral turmoil. You can't fully understand who the character of Bruce Wayne Batman is without mentioning Alfred in some capacity. It's just not possible. He's too important to the lore. So yes, eventually when you want to tell those stories down the line, just like with all of us, death will come for us all. But I wouldn't be able to explain who I am thoroughly without mentioning like my father or my grandfather. That's just part of understanding who a person is. Another, we'll get to two main ones. Probably Batman's biggest ally on the Batman side of things would be Commissioner Gordon, OG, the commissioner of the Gotham City Police Department, and the main reason that Batman doesn't get arrested or sometimes gets deputized or is just kind of like recognized by law, the reason that the bat signal is in the sky, or in certain television shows there's a red phone in the Batcave. Just an all-out ally for Batman. No slouch in his own right. You can see in different iterations he's had some sort of top secret military training. Chicago PD, worked his way up. One of the only incorruptible members of the Gotham City Police Department, just in a absolute nightmare of a city. So it is he's definitely probably Batman's biggest ally. I know there are plenty of storylines where the police are trying to arrest Batman, but always in some capacity, Commissioner Jim Gordon is in Batman's corner or assisting him in some way, or at the very least, too skeptic to want to arrest him. So, the reason Batman can operate the way that he does is in Gotham is very much part and parcel to Jim Gordon. You guys got any favorite interpretations of Jim Gordon? I think mine is definitely the animated series.
Yeah. Animated series before any live action, especially.
Absolutely. I was like, if I could like fan cast him, I would really like to see Bryan Cranston take on the role. I think he would be fantastic. He's got to look somewhat formidable, but like aged. He needs to be an older man. That's why I didn't like the New 52 iteration where he's in this robot bunny suit and he's doing exactly what Batman does. No, he shouldn't be able to do that. He's a figurehead. He realizes that he runs a corrupt police department, but he's a shining example of what upstanding morals should be, and kind of a beacon of hope for the city that you have figureheads like this who are kind of incorruptible. But he should by no means, and if you corner him in a back alley, he should be like street level thugs, he should be able to fight his way out of it. But like if the Joker comes for him, he's going to capture Jim Gordon. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. He's by no means a superhero. He's just a really, really good cop and a really, really good dude.
His specific power is just his morality, his morals and his standards.
Yes. I mean, he's only willing to bend them for Batman's existence, because he also understands that Batman has a no-kill rule. There's limitations to the justice system that allows these criminals to keep corrupting the city, and that allows people under his employ to make it harder to arrest criminals, and just makes his job harder. The best example of is probably in The Dark Knight, where Lau goes to Hong Kong, and Batman has no jurisdiction. He's gonna fly to Hong Kong, pick him up, and drop him back off at City Hall, and go wherever he dropped him off. Probably, yeah, I can't remember where he drops him off, but it was like that's the point. Batman doesn't need a warrant. Batman doesn't operate within the confines of the justice system, and unfortunately, when you have a city like Gotham, you need someone to operate like that, and he understands that. But there are times where he does have to reel Batman in, because he is a vigilante. He is working outside of the law. So it's a wonderful dynamic between those two characters. Also, he is the father of Barbara Gordon. There's certain iterations where he knows, there's certain iterations where he doesn't know. I always think it's best when he doesn't know. There's also certain times where he's relatively sure that it's Bruce Wayne. That's just depending on who's writing him and what the stories need at the time. But all in all, you don't really have a good Batman story unless you have a meeting on a rooftop where Commissioner Gordon is giving the rundown of what the situation is to Batman and why he called him in, and then Batman abruptly disappearing on him before Jim Gordon could get the last word. I mean, that's just kind of what you need. Just like for every Superman story, you need Lois Lane going, "Clark, where have you been? How did you miss everything?" And it was like, "Oh, Superman saved the day. I wish he knew how grateful we were." And then Clark gets that shit-eating grin and looks into the camera, go like, "Oh, I think he knows, Lois. I think he knows." Like you need those kind of things. So let's move on. Anybody got any other final thoughts on Jim Gordon?
I think you left out one of his most important stories that people who are trying to break into read, and would have to be Year One by David Mazzucchelli.
Well, it's Frank Miller. David Mazzucchelli was the artist, but yes, I mentioned Year One earlier on. But yes, obviously we're not going to break into like crucial stories for these characters because we're just doing the rundowns.
Right.
They're all going to get their own specific episodes. Someone who's not though, but is definitely worth mentioning, as important as Jim Gordon is to Batman, I would argue that Lucius Fox is very important to Bruce Wayne in the public sphere of Bruce Wayne. Very much, depending on what you're watching or what you're reading, he's usually the figurehead of Wayne Industries, very much running Bruce's day-to-day stuff. Can't be argued his importance, always figuring out a way, and helping Batman with tech, stuff like that. He is Bruce Wayne's eyes and ears of his corporate management. And he couldn't go without a mention. Morgan Freeman was perfect casting for that.
Yep.
As he is for most things. So
well, I'm just glad that they finally brought him into the live action, because the first 4 movies really didn't touch on it, and especially in the Burton ones, they really did not talk about Wayne Enterprises. It's kind of almost not even non-existent, especially in the first Batman.
If he was going to show up in any of the original like Burtonverse ones, it should have been in Forever. I think that's when
when they really started bringing when they started bringing Wayne Enterprises actually into the movie series, Lucius should have been there.
Which, I'm sad that you don't see growth like that. Which is what we got to why Batman and Robin is so jarring. At least, even though there's an incredible change in aesthetic and atmosphere, Batman Forever is still much more connected to the 2 Burton movies than Batman and Robin. It is far and away.
Yeah.
What it is. The only way that I like it and can justify liking it, besides, it was a movie that I watched over and over and over again, just because that was simply the Batman media that I had to watch as a kid. And let's face it, Schwarzenegger is just fun. I'll never forgive them for what they did to Bane, but I have to look at it as a standalone film. I'd be remiss, and we're not going to cover all of these to some great degree, but there's the Bat family, which is an aspect that I really don't enjoy, is how expanded the Bat family has become. It kind of makes Bruce Wayne's internal struggle kind of feel a little
weak.
Yes, absolutely. I understand it's needed. You need, especially in a modern day setting, it's impossible for him to fight this fight alone. It would be impossible for people not to be inspired by what he's doing. It would be my favorite Robin, Tim Drake, until they started screwing around with his character. It would be impossible for people not to figure out that Bruce Wayne is Batman and blackmail him into not letting him help out. It's you would assume that a billionaire like Bruce Wayne would have kids, so Damian Wayne kind of falls in. Because of his lineage, you would assume that he would kind of fall into these things. Dick Grayson, the first one, is the first edition. I don't think anyone's going to ever argue the importance of Robin. And it was definitely a ploy to lighten up the character and bring more of that adventurous aspect to the character. But it also kind of weakens the character. Because you very much have a modern day ninja ghost-like figure who's trying to scare criminals into using into not being criminals, and then all of a sudden you have this little boy in a circus outfit in bright colors jumping around and smiling and cracking wise, and it makes sense, but he's the quintessential sidekick, but it does weaken the initial aspect of Batman. But he's there are better
Batman.
interpretations of him.
You're a
but
Batman. You're a Batman. Everybody's a Batman. Also,
yeah,
everybody's
exactly.
a Spider-Man too.
Yep. Look
And
under
that
your
spider
chair.
is still biting people.
Jason Todd, I do love what they did with him. Especially in a medium where, just like Dragon Ball Z, if somebody dies, just wait a little bit. They will be back. But for a long time, Jason Todd stayed dead. Besides Bruce Wayne's parents' death, it was probably the death that affected Bruce the most. They brought him back in a big way, and it didn't feel stale. But Catwoman, I don't necessarily like her being in the Bat family. Batwoman, Cassandra Cain is fine. Also, her character has been around since the 50s. She kind of evolved naturally. All these other ones, they're really not worth mentioning until we get to Sidekick Day. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Bat family in some way, shape, or form. But now let's get to the cream of the crop, and what I've been waiting for to get to is who is Batman without his villains. And don't worry, guys, each of these villains, I know we're because we are on the top of the hour here, so we only got about an hour tops left to go, and I don't want to just act like we're glossing over any of Batman's villains, but I picked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 villains that I feel are best dark reflections of Batman, and these are OG villains. There's other ones that you can argue that kind of go a little bit more tit for tat, like notable ones would be like Hush, Prometheus, even Deathstroke, which I know you can say he's a Teen Titans villain, but he makes his way into Batman lore. So let's get started with probably everybody's OG and favorite. And I did not make sure that any of these did not have time, but I think we can recognize who this is just by seeing how he's dressed. And that would be the Clown Prince of Crime himself, the Joker. And so if there's anyone, I can't remember who said this quote, but I like it very much. And I'm not gonna have this. We're not just gonna stare at the Joker's junk the entire time we discuss him. Maybe this one will be a little better.
That
not by much.
Sounds more like a band name. Joker's Nuts.
Joker's
Junk.
Joker's Junk is a great album title.
Yeah.
Or a great ska band. But the Joker, someone said to me, Batman is the hero in the guise of the demon, and the Joker is the demon in the guise of the carnival. And I've always loved that quote. I think it perfectly employs the duality. Do I think he's the polar opposite of Batman? Kind of, in certain ways. But no, if anything, he's the most fun and the most mysterious, and by far the most frightening villain, maybe besides like Professor Pig, that you don't want to run into. But thoughts on Joker, favorite iteration, and anything like that. How do you think the Joker should be done best, or anything like that? I'm interested to hear the panel on this one. When is the Joker at his best, and what is your favorite iteration?
My favorite iteration is animated series. If we're talking,
I can't read a comic book without reading it in Mark Hamill's voice.
Right, and that's and that is due to the portrayal that was done in the animated series, and I think that makes it adds a lot of levels to the character through there. I think the Cesar Romero back in the 60s, I mean, he did. I mean, that was the campy. And
that's very Silver Age.
Yeah. I think too much was good. I think Heath Ledger's version was good, but I think because of him passing, put a lot more on it. but it was a good I think it was good in the sense of being an agent of chaos.
Yeah, it was good for the world that he was in. So
Right.
one of the biggest mistakes, and that's how we got the Zack Snyder verse, which
Duh.
we can discuss that.
That was
I'm not a huge
worst.
fan, but one of the ways that they wanted to end the Dark Knight trilogy was they wanted to incorporate Superman, and I was like, wow, what a bullet that we dodged, because you were trying to play Batman as realistic or as down to earth as you possibly could and still stay true to the character, and then all of a sudden you wanted an alien who shoots laser out of his eyes and could block bullets and just flying around, like that's how you wanted to end the story. And it would be like, well, where were you during all of this? You should never start with Batman. You should start with Superman, because if you start with Batman and then you incorporate people having like superpowers, it's too big of a jump.
Like
but
Iron
yes,
Man. That was the problem with starting with Iron Man with the MCU.
Agreed.
Because then it went into
Because
Hulk, and
as
like
soon
there was
as you have a
still
god,
slightly believable, and then Thor showed up, and it's like, I don't believe it anymore.
yeah, it makes Iron Man inconsequential. You kind of got to lead in. It's still never justified Hawkeye.
Right.
No, but comic wise, it's the Killing Joke. I mean, that just initial bringing. I mean, that was, I think, comic wise, I like that iteration of the Joker.
Yeah, I think the same problem where, even though I love the story, the Dark Knight Returns, where they got that dark, gritty Batman that you really did revitalize the character. The certain, like we talked about, the adventurer aspect of Batman kind of gets lost, because now he's solely on a mission. He speaks very much in like military jargon. He refers to his Robins as soldiers. It's an aspect of Batman, but it's not the sole aspect of Batman. And just like you said with the Joker in The Dark Knight, it's an aspect of the Joker, but it's not the Joker. Yep. The Joker, to me, is, and Joker Voice put it great in the chat here, is he's the ultimate foil for Batman. But the scariest thing about the Joker is he wants to kill you, but he wants to kill you and leave you with a smile on your face. And he doesn't do it for any specific reason. He does it because he has his own reasons, or he doesn't, and he just does it because he's compelled to do so. He's not in it for monetary gain. Well, more so in the Silver Age, there was like monetary gain, but that's basically all you could do with supervillains at the time. He wants to kill you and leave you with a smile on your face. And yes, I agree. I think Jack Nicholson probably brought my favorite aspects of the Joker onto the screen. He also should say things that you should catch yourself laughing at and then kind of like feel bad about laughing at it later. He's inappropriate. Like a great example would be probably one of my favorite Batman movies is Under the Hood. And he has that moment with Jason Todd and Batman, and he's like, let's take pictures. And it was like, first we'll get you and me, and then you and me, and one with the cake, and then one with the crowbar. And you're like, oh, that's funny, but you're like, oh yeah, he beat Jason Todd to death with that crowbar. It's an insane thing to say. Brew, thanks for showing up. But that's the aspect of the character. I hate when they try to give him an origin story other than he fell into that vat of chemicals and, the one bad day aspect. But even then, people kind of rely on that too heavily. The Joker, before he's the Joker, should always have his fingers into a bunch of different pies and a bunch of different connections, but no one ever wants to talk about it. Why? Supervillains should be aware of him, extremely leery of him, but never truly happy to see him. I think he's better when Batman is fighting somebody else and then the Joker just kind of pops up. A great example of that would probably be in either The Long Halloween or what's the one before The Long Halloween? The first Leob sale.
I'm blanking.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where, he's looking for Scarecrow and the Mad Hatter, but all of a sudden, the Joker took a couple people hostage on Christmas. Why? Because, he wants to hold people at gunpoint and watch kids open their presents. Why? Who knows?
The Joker's voice makes a good one. It's Batman's mission is to establish order. Joker has been said to be agent of chaos. So they are maybe the opposites of the coin to each other in that sense. Order,
Yes.
justice, and safety, where Joker is the opposite of it, being chaos, destruction, and
Yes.
just confusion.
Well, he is the embodiment of how futile his mission actually is, where he's trying to bring order to a chaotic world, and nobody symbolizes that better.
Yep.
So, it's perfect.
So
He's perfect.
I finished the sketch cover. It's done.
Oh, all right. Let's check this out. Hold on, I gotta figure out how to solo layout. Oh, yeah, it's incredible, guys. Zach is probably one of the most talented artists that I know. He just keeps getting better and better. Please go to his channel. He has art for sale. Buy some of it so he can hang out with me in Vegas. But thank you for doing that. Thank you for coming on and doing that. Let's get back to another fan favorite is wow, none of these are working out here. Let's see if we can find them in the bottom right there, and that would be Oswald Chesterfield Cobblepot, better known as the Penguin. Obviously he is a dark reflection of Bruce, more so to speak. He grew up in Gotham's establishing families. He's a socialite. Of course. But let's see. Great listening, you guys. Talking about Batman is fascinating. Being somebody not nearly as familiar as you guys are, I'm really enjoying this, and I'm really enjoying that you're enjoying it. That was the point. Is we can really get into depth here, and I want people who are looking to get into comic books have like a comfortable starting out point and at least have a basic understanding of all of these characters. And like I said, I know it feels like we're glossing over his rogues gallery. We aren't. We're going to be going. Each one of these characters are going to have their own episode. So Oswald Chesterfield Cobblepot, he's a Gotham socialite, very much a dark reflection of Bruce. And his undoing is always that he has a chip on his shoulder. In some aspects, I think he might be smarter than Bruce, but he'll never believe it. And that's why he's always that'll always be his undoing, because he will it's a confidence thing. He always feels like he's being glossed over. It's always about respect. The Cobblepots were never as respected as much as the Waynes were. He, just by his stature, is a stout little man who resembles a bird. So Bruce was always getting the girls. Oswald was not. Bruce is also a cooler name than Oswald. I'm sure it's stuff like that. In his newer, more modern adaptations, he in the Silver Age, he was just this goofy looking guy who was very ornithologically oriented, very anything that had to do with birds, or if there was something that had to do with birds in any capacity, he was just going to steal it. Now they've made him more of a crime boss, which is much more fitting for his type of character. So yes, he's a dark reflection of Bruce Wayne. And if the corruption of Gotham and that criminal aspect, if he would have used his connections to do that instead of becoming Batman, I think he's a reflection of that. There are some very strange iterations. of the Penguin. But panel, do you have a favorite, and what do you think makes a good Penguin story?
Damn,
Well,
I actually haven't really read that much with Penguin outside of anything that was involved in David Finch's run.
Okay.
It's tough. I can't really say anything on that one because I don't know that
Again,
much when it comes to him.
like the Joker, the Penguin is always better suited when he's got something going on in the background, or like a main scheme. He's a mastermind type character. So he's the type of character who will employ other supervillains to distract Batman from like whatever heist he's doing, or he's the guy that Batman, they do it in the Batman where he goes into the Iceberg Lounge and just starts bashing him around because he needs information. He can go toe to toe with Batman, but he's by no means Batman's most formidable.
More crime, more or less crime boss. That stuff
Yes.
is happening in the background. He's not the one that's putting it out there to be right front and center. Let's say comparatively to the Joker, that wants it to be known that it's him when it's ready to be. Otherwise, for the Penguin, it's more or less the stuff he's doing in the background. He doesn't want that connection to be to him. It's pure crime boss.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and he's best suited that way.
Yep.
His Silver Age aspects, they're fun and they're great for the time, but the way that the character has evolved, he's definitely gotten a glow up, where some of these characters might have actually it's the best part about all of Batman's rogues gallery is they've managed to kind of stay relevant even though they have evolved. And that's solely because they're so well written. But the Penguin is until we start getting into all of his iterations on when he gets his own episode, we can go. Now here is one that I think is probably the most misunderstood and underutilized in Batman's rogues gallery, and that would be Bane.
Are you sure about that? I think he is pretty well utilized since he's been around
in other media.
Oh, good, yeah.
Bane.
Yeah, most
I was
people know
born
him
in the
because of his
dark.
stupid voice.
Yeah,
Dark
he
Knight
is.
Rises.
Yeah.
I still have not had a proper live action done of me.
No, he hasn't. And that's also when Christopher Nolan said, "Oh, I can make movies where people don't we're going to have the characters' mouths be covered, and that's passable. I'll just get away with it because I'm Christopher Nolan." And everyone in the world said, "Yes, Christopher Nolan." And what was that movie where everybody had masks on and you couldn't understand them?
Yeah.
But
Tenet.
Tenet, thank you. Yep.
Tenet. I still haven't seen it.
Watch it with subtitles on. Because everybody's talking like this. You merely adopted the dark. But yeah, so Bane is, for all intents and purposes, even though he's physically formidable, most of the time in the comics he doesn't use venom as much anymore. He would use that to augment his physical skill, but he is just as smart as Bruce Wayne, and he ended up being more of a gun for hire character. So he's a reflection of what you can do with Bruce's intellect and and his physical capability, so he is kind of the anti-Batman in that aspect. He is a dark reflection of Bruce Wayne. He didn't grow up in privilege. He was raised in a prison called Santa Prisca, even though he walked around with a little knife and a teddy bear. And he just happened to be a genius with a photographic memory, and he rose his way up in the criminal underworld, and he can foil Batman. He outsmarted Batman to a point where he had Batman so run down that he just picked him up and broke his back. And, that's obviously Nightfall, probably the most, infamous story that Bane is in, but he's a tough cookie.
That's why live action wise, with the not doing it properly, especially when with Batman and Robin completely
Oh yeah,
do him
when
dirty.
they made him a henchman,
It made him a henchman of just a prisoner that's an idiot, essentially just a slave to whoever's in control of him. Whoever's giving him the venom to keep him is the one that controls him.
Yep. And the only thing that should be controlling Bane is he has an addiction to venom, which Batman actually overcame in the comics in a storyline called Batman Venom, which it augments you physically to enormous proportions, but it's also highly addictive. So it is superhero meth is the best way to put it. It's super meth. And he has that pumped directly into his brain. I can't remember if that augments his mental capacity as well, but it definitely augments him physically. So yes, that he's probably the perfect foil for Batman's genius. But speaking of geniuses, here's a character who is another good thing about Batman's rogues, or in some of my favorites, they should always be reflections of Batman. But since they are a dark reflection, they should have a flaw that should be their own undoing. And none of them has a bigger flaw than this blurry picture of the Riddler. The Riddler, Edward Nashton, Edward Nygma, is, I'd say, probably head and shoulders smarter than Batman, but his own undoing will be he will always fail because he has to prove it. And there's so many different interpretations of this character that I've seen. I cannot wait to do the Riddler aspect. I think I'm always going to love the Frank Gorshin 1960s Batman, but I do love how he's developed over the years. And what makes a good Riddler story, guys? And who is your favorite interpretation?
Sammy,
Matt Reeves.
I hate to do it. I do have to dip. I gotta
that's
say,
fine, buddy.
I apologize. I gotta feed my daughter and whatnot.
No, it's all good. We only got 2 more to cover anyway. Plug yourself. Tell everybody where you're going to be, and
so I'm on Twitter and Instagram, same tag name handle, Zackary's Art. Anytime I'll come on the show, I'm gonna be I'll be just sketching any sketch cover of Batman. So I think next time I come on, what would you guys want me to do? Would it be a specific villain, another Batman costume? Like,
I mean, it kind of depends on when you can come back on and what we're covering that week. So,
okay, all right. Well, till next time, guys. I appreciate you all having me on, and I'm glad you liked the sketch cover. But you guys take it easy and kick ass for the rest of the show. It was nice to meet y'all.
All right. Take it easy,
Good to
buddy.
meet you.
Yeah, take it easy.
All right, now we'll get back.
Overall, for me, I books wise, I'm not as familiar when it comes to the comic aspect of the Riddler. Know the 60s references of the Riddler, and then the Jim Carrey one, and definitely with the Jim Carrey one specifically, it definitely is I think they do a good job of capturing his, not necessarily wanting to be correct over Batman initially. It's to be, he's a character that's ignored. Then when he gets something, now he needs to be the best at it and proven to be the best. And then
he's definitely one with a chip on his shoulder for sure.
Right. And they definitely play him as the person that has a chip on the shoulder. I'm better than everyone else, and I'm going to prove it to the point it's going to destroy me.
Well, yeah, I think it was Greg Rucka said, so the Riddler could be in a burning building all tied up and somehow have communication with Batman and go, Batman, I'm going to die. You have to save me. And he's just like, I'll save you. Just tell me where you are. and he'll be like, well, I'm at the corner of, if the rooster crows at
Yep.
midnight, then it was like he just can't help but go, I'm smarter than you. And that will always be his undoing, because if you can make him believe that he isn't, he will just unravel. And he's also become more of kind of a hacker character. He's a wealth of information in Gotham. If, like I said, when Batman stops to get information, he's probably going to question the Riddler or the Penguin first, because they have the lay of the land. His whole point is to, I mean, maybe get rich in the process, but nothing would make him happier than just to defeat Batman, not physically, just in a match of wits. And when he realizes that he can't, he basically, that's his undoing. So there's really not much to go over more about Eddie here.
He definitely, the character that there, it's just he wants to be so proven right, so wants everyone to acknowledge that he is the smartest, the most intelligent, that it's his own undoing.
All right, and let's get into probably the most second to last, but definitely not least, is probably the best physical.
Man-Bat.
No. When we're talking about duality, how could we not talk about Two-Face? And wonderful character. Another one that Bruce regards as a failure. In the Golden Age, when he first came out, the coin flip was it was supposed to be, what if you just took Jekyll and Hyde and smashed them both together? So when he would flip the coin, he would either do something good or something bad. So he'd flip the coin once and he would rob a bank. Then, he would flip the coin again and then realize he had to do something good. So he would donate the money that he robbed from the bank to charity. It then evolved and to, the whole more exploration of Harvey Dent and kind of the duality of good and bad. And now you have the character of Harvey Dent, who was a shining beacon of morality in Gotham's White Knight DA, who was tragically scarred, and that scarred his psyche, and it broke him down so much mentally that now he needs to flip a coin to decide what to do. And what a better reflection of Batman, who is always, kind of the moral compass for everyone in, comics. Like, there's someone who doesn't sway on, what's right and what's wrong. And that usually is Batman. And now you have someone who very much was a reflection of that in the public eye, who became so damaged that he just can't make decisions for himself anymore. He's truly one of the members in Batman's rogues gallery who belongs in Arkham, because he's just a damaged person. And I think one of the biggest missteps is in Batman Forever. If Tommy Lee Jones would have played Two-Face like Agent K in in Men in Black, it would have been so much better, where you have this guy who's very deadpan, very straight-laced, and just, hey, let's see what the coin does, instead of trying to do try and mirror what Jim Carrey was doing and kind of what Jack Nicholson was bringing when he played the Joker. That's not what the character needed. You need this lost kind of character where his whole morality stems on the flip of a coin. For favorite interpretations, things that you make.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just asking.
Yeah. For me, overall, I see the Harvey Dent character prior to becoming Two-Face as he has his morals, he has his upstanding when it comes to the aspect of kind of looking at it from the movie aspect of the shining beacon that Batman Bruce Wayne is looking at as possibly just taking over essentially the mantle of saving the city. But I think the mental illness and the break that occurs is always just somewhat lying under the surface, specifically with the coin in itself. The coin always being there, especially with the Batman, the Dark Knight. That coin is already there. The coin has been part of his character of flipping it. Now, granted, in the Dark Knight, it's a man makes his own luck, and that's why it's a two-sided head coin. There is no tail.
That's the point, and that shows you how damaged he got. Is before he had this,
but it was always lying
two-sided
under
coin.
the surface.
He knew what the right decision is. Now that half of him is damaged and half of that coin is damaged, he no longer knows, or in some iterations just doesn't care.
I think it's a matter of it's literally the two personalities fighting against each other, that it's leaving it to the flip of the coin to decide what is the proper action. What am I going to do? Because I am two minds. I cannot, this is the only way to parse it.
Yeah, no, it's like that cartoon thing where there's the
devil.
angel and the devil on your shoulder. Both of those things are talking at once. So, since they are truly halves, the only fair decision to do would be to flip a coin. And that's what makes him dangerous. That's what some of the best even though I don't like that adaptation, I was like, when and they do it in so many different other stories, when Batman throws up all those coins at the coin flip and he falls down the cliff. I mean, that's kind of how it has to be. Oh, that's how you beat Two-Face, is you take his coin away from him. And when you take his coin away from him, he should break down and have a mental breakdown, because he seriously does not know how to operate.
Yeah, the coin is
Batman.
Can be.
Go ahead.
He is formidable. But again, it is an interesting character because it is the duality. It's showing Bruce Wayne, because Bruce Wayne lives in a world of duality himself, between the Batman being Batman and being Bruce Wayne, and having the two sides of his personality there, where essentially almost Two-Face is a kind of a mirror to him, because instead of putting on a uniform to become Batman, Two-Face is always showing both personalities.
And he's got to pay well, because he's one of the big three in Batman's rogues gallery, where it was like, why the hell would you want to work for a guy who will just as easily shoot you as he would pay you? The Joker is one, and then let's get to probably my favorite dark reflection of Batman, probably be the final talking point before we wrap up, is
Clayface.
Dr. Jonathan Crane, Scarecrow. As someone like Batman who uses fear as a weapon, he uses it for personal gain, and will always be his undoing, because even though he is fascinated by fear, he is a slave to it. And I loved his interpretation in Batman Begins. I love the animated series. This is probably one of my favorite villains, but there isn't a lot to say about him. He's a selfish little turd who, that's his shtick, and he's fascinated by fear. He loves inflicting fear on others, and he will only use it for personal gain. And he is a dickhead, but also wouldn't want to work for him either.
In the case, bringing up the Batman Begins, he's just a useful tool. That's Ra's al Ghul. It's using him with the League of Shadows to essentially use him just as a tool to get the initial work done, for then the League of Shadows to come in and then finish and complete the mission.
Well, he's almost like a pyromaniac character, so to speak.
Oh yeah.
Where it was like his end goal is always going to be to like gas the city and just put it into absolute chaos, because that's where he lives. He's also the design of this character through the years is it's just so fun. He's just an archetype, something that's been used in just like fear iconography for years and years and years. It's just, he when you look at him, you think of Halloween, you think of folktale, even Jonathan Crane, which is obviously a nod to Ichabod Crane, to probably one of the most famous American ghost stories of all time, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Like everything, he is the embodiment of fear, which is a tool that Batman very much uses. This is when does that morally, because Batman does kind of operate in the gray. This is when it, morally becomes reprehensible. And
it's almost like he's fascinated with the response to the fear of the fight or flight.
Yes. I'm pretty sure, and I haven't gotten to this. So I bought, I started with Batman, Golden Age Omnibus 1. And I'm not sure when Jonathan Crane shows up, but if I'm not mistaken, the first time that he killed somebody was either his parents or the head of the university that he worked at, because they had a collection of like first edition old books that he wanted. Then he just scared them so bad that they eventually committed suicide or went insane. I can't remember the initial story. And it is, isn't it? Yo, Pops, great to see you, brother. But so he has no other motivations of, he uses fear as a weapon, and he's going to utilize that weapon to get whatever he wants. Like there's really not a lot of exploration into the character. You could argue that other characters like Mr. Freeze, who we're not going to get to today, because I don't really find him to be a dark reflection of Batman. He's very driven into one aspect, and which is great. Clayface is another
the
one.
aspect of, I mean, we're not going to really get into it, but Dr. Freeze in itself is more a sad I think is more of a sadder tale of a villain.
Which
also
wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Professor Zero, until you got into the animated series, didn't really have that tragic backstory until you got to that, which thank God they did. Paul Dini, absolute champ in that aspect. But yes, so he's another one who either he's gassing the city, or he's got another thing where he's just adding his fear drugs and into they do it in The Dark Knight, where he's just throwing his fear toxin into like local drugs, and the peddlers are like, why are you doing this? And he's like, hey, I'm fucking crazy. What do you want? So I think that'll do as far as the dark reflections of Batman. I think we did a good job today covering most of what we need to cover. I'm gonna look at my syllabus here and see. So yeah, we can wrap it up. This was about Bruce today. What do you think makes the best Bruce Wayne Batman? Like, what is needed in order to tell a Batman story effectively? Now, granted, there's a million ways that you can do it correctly, but what is quintessential to you?
I'll go first. A man that is troubled by his past, that is dealing with a dark demon, and the only way to sate that dark demon is using it for good, and that's to try to end what caused that demon to appear in his life, which is the death of his parents. It's got to have that motivation in the sense of, I want to protect my city, and I need to find a way to do it in such a way that is going to strike fear and try to, through that fear, make it putting the fear in criminals for them to change their behavior so that he doesn't have to keep doing this. But also it is a bit of vengeance.
Agreed. I'm gonna stop you right there. I got to get better at this. Yes, guys, if you're in the chat and you have questions, let me know. And if someone has a good question, chat, and I missed it, I don't have, I'm not monetized yet. I don't have super chats, so like nothing's gonna like stick out. So you could be like, hey, Big Ship had a question, but this is a great one. As a normie, does Scarecrow have anything besides the fear toxin stuff, or is that his whole thing? On a very basic, on a very basic level, yes, that's his number one tool in his arsenal. That's what he's known for, but like he is a criminal who will kill you. He's not now he might set up things where he could be kind of like a Mysterio character for like Spider-Man, where he'll have whole illusions and things like that. But yes, he has a chemical that he uses to scare the shit out of people, and he uses it usually to propel himself forward or for monetary gain. He's kind of a one-trick pony, but he's a very fun one-trick pony, and he explores a side of Batman that Batman should always like question himself, like, am I doing the right thing by using fear as a tool? But the thing should always stand true that they utilize this tool differently. So it's like what Odin said about Thor's hammer, like it's a fitting tool for a king. It's a tool to destroy, but it's also a tool to build, and that's what we get. No, he's not one-dimensional. And another thing really too, another good thing about the Scarecrow that makes a good Scarecrow story is he should be big bad, scaring everybody, whether he's just doing it from his appearance or his toxins or whatever heinous crime he's committed. But when Batman finally has him cornered, he is a sniveling little bitch because he's just a skinny little runt. And it's the epitome of when you confront a bully on the schoolyard and you're like, oh, you're not so big and bad after all. And it was like, once you got them pegged, they'll never scare you again. The only problem is there's an entire city that he can do this to. But like one-on-one with
don't peg the bullies.
Yeah, one-on-one with Batman, he doesn't really stand a chance unless he has a chance to gas him. And
the toxin in itself is only his muscle. It's his tool to bully. Once that tool is taken away or is deemed ineffective, he's there's nothing.
Yeah, he's a cobra without the venom. He's
right.
He's a belt.
And he's one of the worst on the list because he's just pure evil. Like the Joker is bad, but there's still that little bit of humanity to the Joker that makes readers empathize with him. You really have a hard time empathizing with somebody like Dr. Crane because he's just pure evil and just pure malevolence.
Yeah, okay. It's like when a rabid dog bites you. You're like, well, the dog doesn't know any better. That's kind of the Joker. You're just kind of in the way.
Yeah.
Unless you do something to slight the Joker, you're just in the Joker's way and you're just collateral damage. Like this man will plot and scheme because you have something that he wants and he's going to use this to take advantage of you and scare you in that capacity to do it. He doesn't care who he hurts in the process, but he plans these things. And that does I agree. That does kind of make him a little bit more despicable because he's making the choice to do so. He's plotted it out. The Joker or the Riddler or even someone like Mr. Freeze, you just happen to be there and, you're just means to an end. You could say the same thing about Two-Face. He doesn't necessarily care if you live or die. He is usually acting out of spite. He'll do things to people who have wronged him or, tried to make him look like a joke in the academic community. There's usually a level of vindictiveness to this sniveling little, twerp. And, but he's not to be trifled with, unfortunately. But yeah, I think out of a lot of them, he is the most despicable. even guys like Firefly, or is it Firebug? He's a pyromaniac. He just likes to burn things. You know what I mean? He doesn't know if anybody's in the building. He doesn't care. But if you're being attacked by Scarecrow, he knows, and you have something he wants, and he's willing to ruin your life to do it. So, because no one ever goes up against the Scarecrow and is like okay afterwards. He sprays you with something where like your darkest fears come out. Like you're supposed to be in absolute agony and mental anguish for as long as it lasts, and sometimes people don't really snap out of it. Their mind breaks, and their lives are just shattered, and all because you had a trinket he wanted to steal, or you were mean to him in grade school, whatever it was. He is by far the biggest dick in Batman's rogues gallery for sure. Fake Wizard, what do you think makes the best type of Batman story?
Morality. And this is where I don't like, and I know a lot of people do, but I personally do not like the Snyderverse version of Batman. The killing thing was a break for me, as like I can't take it seriously with having Batman kill people, because he doesn't feel like a hero now. He's killing people, and that's kind. It's the reason we love superheroes so much is because it's something we can't do. So that heroism is is the virtues that we want to live, but we can't ourselves always live up to that. And
yes, that's why we call
Batman,
him superhero. Is they find a way.
Right. They find a way to be better than we can be. So, and Batman is one of the best. And it's like, and it came up earlier on stream where we were talking about, he's kind of crazy, but it's like, it's never going to be done. He'll never be able to really stop all crime. There's always going to be the next thing. It's like, yeah, but he saved all those lives along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are still families that are together because of what he's done. So
I know it's cliche, but it is a never-ending battle.
So it's something that captures that. I think the Christian Bale movies did that well. But I think, and this is kind of, I don't really hear this very much from many people, the Justice League animated series version of Batman. Now, yes, it's a continuation of the Batman the animated series, but there are some really great moments in there where you get very emotional with Batman and how he plays with a team, and he's not the best team player, but he still genuinely has connections to all these people. It's you get to see him outside of being the father figure of his own family, of the Bat family.
Yeah,
so I kind of like
you
that.
realize why he's on the team is again he's the planner. I will always say that Martian Manhunter is kind of the moral compass of the Justice League, but he is the de facto leader. I know that Superman's really the leader, but like when the cards are down, you look at Superman because Superman in itself, in his creation, was an ideal, correct? Like Batman is the guy who, but Superman was born into that. It's very easy to always do the right thing when no one can hurt you.
Right.
Batman strives towards that and embodies that because, like I said, he's peak human potential. I'd say my favorite thing with Batman is it kind of has to encompass a little bit of everything. It should probably start out with a meeting on a rooftop with Commissioner Gordon, or him seeing the signal, getting the rundown. There should be a main bad guy and then someone who kind of gets in the way, where like the Riddler has a bunch of people held captive, and he wants, you have to solve this puzzle by midnight or he's going to blow up everything. And then, but while you're doing that, Scarecrow is scaring the shit out of people, and because like somebody has a diamond that he wants to steal. So he needs to utilize his time, his skills, maybe his compatriots to help solve that. There should always be a moral question. He needs to rise above that, not kill anybody, and solve it in a nice neat little package, but most importantly, it's got to be a detective story, and there always has to be a little moment where he scares the shit out of a street level thug from he still has time to scare the shit out of a street level thug into maybe thinking about his life decisions, and then he doesn't stick around for the family to thank them. Is the lady's purse or the money that they stole is like in a pile in front of him, and you just see a silhouette kind of going away, and then he just fades into the shadows. There should never be a moment where Batman is being thanked, and if anybody's thanking him, it's Commissioner Gordon. And after the villain is captured, he has broken them down in some way psychologically and used that against them, where that, like we talked, that has to be their foil. And there should be some sort of sympathy there where he either wants to get them the help they need or encourages them to change their ways. And then that's it. There's not much. It's a pretty easy format. It is a format that has stood the test of time. And guys, I think we got it covered. So Drunken Emerald Arrow, where are you going to be this week? What do you got to do? Anything you like to plug?
Yeah, shortly. In about an hour, I'll be over on comedian Theo Snodgrass's show, Touch Grass with Theo Snodgrass. And then I have my
guys,
show.
If you haven't seen that, do yourself a favor. Theo is hilarious.
Yep. Got my daily show, my weekly show, Friday nights at 9:30 PST, 12:30 AM EST, which is insert title here. And I have a nice little panel that we just talk about just a theme for the night. We don't really specifically go with a topic. And we just did the last Friday of the month, which is the free-for-all. And that one gets a little bit chaotic and a little bit nutty what comes out.
Excellent. Fake Wizard, my friend, what do you have coming up? I know you've been blowing up on YouTube lately, and it is well deserved. I know you have a lot of things in the works, including your own tabletop game. So why don't you tell us about that?
There's not enough hours in the day. We got new video coming, hopefully, God willing, later today. I should be streaming later this evening as well. And just covering business news, entertainment commentary, and the world is stupid, and we got to do something about it. So that's pretty much what I'm doing here. Real Life Fake Wizard here on YouTube.
All right. And I am your host, Sammy 3Pete. Thank you for going into another episode of Cavecast. I think we did a good job. Basically, if you were new to the comics or just new to the lore of Batman in general, you should probably have a better idea of who Bruce Wayne is, who Batman is, and why we love him. And I have a show. I will be Sunday night at a 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I have my In Other News. That's where I have like-minded individuals in the, to quote my friend Leon, nerdosphere, where we don't talk about anything pop culture-wise, and we just decompress and talk about stupid things that happened in the news this week. So you can follow me for that. Otherwise, you'll see me bopping around on, as guests on other people's channels. And then every Tuesday, me and Leon, we have a show called Tinfoil Haters. That's where we explore our favorite conspiracy theories and, just maybe urban legends, creepypastas, anything that we want to talk about, really. But you have to have one of these on to do so. So, guys, that covers it. Thank you very much, chat. You were awesome. Please, if you haven't, like the channel, subscribe, and share this with your friends, because you might have like a person who wants to know about Batman but's too ashamed to ask. So I will see you guys next week. I've yet to determine what the episode's going to be about, and keep in mind, they're not always going to be as long as this. We had to go a little longer for this one because the the podcast is about Batman. So we were talking about Batman today. So I would assume this would be one of the longer episodes. But so when we get to the Penguin, that one might be just like a clean 60 minutes. But the idea is every single week we are going to pick one subject. And I know it gets a little crazy because, how can you talk about Batman without talking about all these other aspects? But that's for me to agonize over all week and for you to enjoy every Saturday morning. So catch us next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. See y'all.
Come on.
Yes, Batman, clad in the somber costume which has struck terror to the heart of many a swaggering denizen of the underworld.
Bob?
Done.
Holy CinemaScope! Holy miscast Batman! Holy movie mogul! Holy cliffhangers Batman! Holy suborbit Batman! It's raining down there! The history! Holy catastrophes Batman! Holy bullseye Batman! Holy stereo! Listen to this! Holy armadillos! Holy Krypton! Holy trampoline! Holy fork in the road! Holy Titanic Batman! Holy Houdini! Holy funny bone the Joker! Holy chutzpah! Holy precision!
Tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel.
The monster who took you from me will soon learn that revenge is a dish best served cold.